there was actually it was a Chick-fil-A. I didn't actually interview for the job. We happened to, it was like a fundraiser thing, so we were just happened to talk to the manager, or at least one of the managers. I think it was the wife of the guy who owns the franchise. And I was telling her that responsibility was a problem for me, but I'd really like to take a job to be able to, get better in some areas of that.
Yeah, good.
I mean, I just think that sometimes, if you said, I'm not a very responsible person, they say, bye.
Right, exactly.
But
here's a freebie. Free! You're going to be glad you got out of bed this morning. Everyone is either a relationship person or a task person. Relationship people are great with relationships. They're not great with getting tasks done. Right? There's like a give and a take. Task folks that can get a bunch of tasks done, aren't always good with relationships. So you fall on one end of the spectrum or the other, which is okay. That's how God designed you. But that's a good thing. For me, I can get 100 things done in a day.
Really?
Yes. So one of my weaknesses is I have to intentionally spend time building relationships and pausing, because I just want to make little rocks out of big rocks, right? I just want to swing my sledgehammer, just pound that rock pile. Okay. What are some other possible questions? What interests you about the job? And gang, I will punch you if you say, when somebody says, what interests you about the job, and you're like, well, I need a paycheck, and it's not about you. It is, but you don't say that in the interview. Because all your competition is saying that in the interview. You want to be different. Have a good answer for why should we hire you? That was one of my favorite questions. I don't know how many folks asked that, but you should be able to answer the question, why should we hire you? If all of you are interviewing for Chick-fil-A and they can only hire 2 people right now, what makes you different than the rest of your peers sitting in here? Okay, next. Practice behavioral questions. So people go 4 years of college to get a degree in human resource. They subscribe to Human Resource Magazine. They get their certifications in human resources. And a lot of it is about behavioral questions, if you can ask good behavioral questions. All those years and all that money. So they get really excited about their behavioral questions. So you've got to nail your behavioral questions. Yes?
I was going to say, from my experience of my one interview at Chick-fil-A,
With the Godfather?
There were a lot of scenario questions. Mm-hmm. A lot of, if this happened, what are you going to do about it?
That's a behavioral question.
Yeah, there were, and that was like the majority of the
Right on.
So make sure you know your job and know what kind of things can happen. Not
Good.
like just the things that they tell you, like what kind of things might happen and
Right.
what you would do about it.
Perfect. That was an excellent setup.
I actually have a story about when they made a mistake and how they actually handled it. We ordered 2 medium lemonades and they gave us 2 large lemonades.
yeah.
Now you can't take it back, so they had to figure out how to deal with it, and it turns out they just gave it to us anyway. But that's one thing you need to figure out how to deal with, because you can't take food back, and you
Right.
just hand it to them.
Right.
So there's always that.
Sounds like a score to me.
It was, not for that moment.
Oh, one time growing up in Oregon, we ordered a pizza and I went to pick it up and left with it. I left with this pizza and got all the way home, 15 minutes, opened it up, it's like, whoa, this is not what I ordered. So I closed the lid, I didn't touch it. I drive back and there's a guy standing there waiting. I walk in, I hand it, and I tell him, this isn't what I'm here. And he goes, oh, sir, here's your pizza.
Ooh.
And the guy was like, somebody left with that. I mean,
That's
I'm not
awesome.
saying you're gross, lady, but I don't want the pizza you've had at your house for the last 30 minutes. I mean, that was a crazy situation. So that guy didn't handle it very well.
Abby, what did you call those questions?
Scenario.
Scenario questions.
It was really funny. I'll make this quick, but basically we have friends who live down in Colorado Springs, and they were taking over a store for an antique store. And in the back, they left. They were really irresponsible. Not only did they leave like names and basically everything but credit cards, like somebody should be ruined for this because it was literally just in a wood box that you could kick apart, right? But one of the things in there was this stack of like 200 behavioral questions, and I actually got to look at them. So I wish I saved him. Actually, I still know the guy, but they certainly exist. I was just reading them. I was like, holy crap.
Yeah.
Just tons of different, how would you handle this scenario? How would you handle this scenario? If a customer came to you, what would you say in this? And there was 200 of them.
And you can Google behavioral questions. So I call behavioral, what do you call it? Scenario. So let me hop into this.
I have one really quick thing that I don't want you to forget to tell. It's kind of scenario. The time you interviewed with like a bunch of ladies.
Yeah.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
What do you mean I come? I'm married. I thought that was pretty funny myself.
They didn't.
Okay, so here's a good tool to respond to behavioral questions. It's called the STAR method. Is you give the situation, the task, the action you took, and the result. So an example would be, describe a situation in which you were able to use persuasion to successfully convince someone to see things your way. So in your response, you would use the STAR method, right? You'd give the situation, that you were able to convince somebody to do something. Here's the situation. I was working at Home Depot, blah, blah, blah. The task at hand was I had to get my peers to do X, Y, Z. This is the action I took. And here is the result. Okay? STAR. What does that stand for?
Situation.
T.
Action. Result.
Excellent. So here's some examples of behavioral questions. Describe a time when you were faced with problems or stresses that tested your coping skills. Okay? Speak to a time when you had to go above and beyond the call of duty in order to get something done. Okay? Number 9. At the end of the interview, you will normally be given an opportunity to ask questions. The questions you ask will tell the interview a lot about you. So, some of the things that you might want to ask is, what is the pay, how much vacation? This is not the time to ask those things. That is at offer. There's 2 reasons. One, it's kind of impolite to ask about pay until you get the offer. But 2, the main reason is, do you guys know what I mean by offer? After you go through this process, they're going to say, we would like to hire you and we'll pay you this much and we'd like you to start on this day. And then you say yes or no. At that point, they have so much invested in you. Time, they've interviewed others, and they're really excited about you. You're the winner. So that's the time to start talking money. You don't want to talk about money until you have you have them on the hook. Okay, so thoughtful professional people ask thoughtful professional questions. Here are some great questions to ask, gang. This is often one of the harder things to do. What questions am I supposed to ask? These are winning questions. Number 1, Mr. Manager, what does your top performing employee do that is different from his or her peers? If you walked into Home Depot or Target at 16, 17 and asked the hiring manager that, they'd probably fall down because your future peers are having a hard time just keeping their pants up. And you're asking, Mr. Manager, what do your top performing employees do, compared to their peers? Is that a cool question? Aren't you glad you got up this morning? Yeah.
In your opinion, as great a question as that is, you probably don't want to make it sound like you Googled best questions to ask. So shouldn't you make them like conversational with the basis going around here?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, and even like be funny with it or whatever. Yeah, that's a good point. What would a normal workday be like? That's a thoughtful question.
What was it I missed it?
What would a normal workday be
Oh,
like?
thank you. Your wife's the one that you're talking.
Yeah. How is the training program structured? Yes, Luke.
I don't know what you meant by workday, but is this a good time to ask about hours too?
Yeah. Yeah, so what I mean by workday is, a lot of jobs, maybe you get there before it opens and you have to get the, fryers going or whatever and take money out of the safe, put it in the register. There's a routine, just like at home now. There's a routine to your day, and companies have that as well. Describe the corporate culture. Is it fun? Is it stuffy? What's the deal? Asking the hiring manager, what do you like about working here? That's a fun one, because everyone likes to talk about themselves. Everyone's number one topic is me, right? Don'ts. Number 10, don't talk poorly about past employers, past teachers, if you're homeschooled.
Especially if you're homeschooled.
Don't talk about money during the interview. We all know it's the most important thing to you, but don't talk about it yet. Don't mention salary. If asked how much you're looking for, the easiest thing to say is, I'm looking for a fair wage for this position. And why do we do that? It's because there's a no-win. If you don't know what they pay, okay, let's just pretend. Like when you watch reality TV and they keep breaking out, you're like watching something kind of like live, but then they break out and the person's like telling you what they're thinking. You know how they flip back and forth? So let's break out for a second. The position pays $11 an hour. Okay, now let's go back to our story. We don't know what it pays. Somebody says, how much do you want to make? What are the possibilities? You could say 12, then you're out, because they only pay 11. You could say 10, and then you won, now you get paid 10. They're like, great, saved $1 an hour right there. So you have a 66% chance or greater, because it's not a A, B, or C choice. But you see, that's why you don't talk money. If you're too high, you're out. If you're too low, you win. But you lose by winning.
Yeah.
So it's best to just say, I'd like a fair wage. And then if they come back at you again, and they want you to say a number, then just say a number and just roll the dice.
I know on my Chick-fil-A application, one of the questions, like the written application, it said, what do you expect to be paid? And I literally just wrote, whatever is normally paid for this position.
Right? That's a no-lose, right? Perfect. Abby's gonna be the godfather.
We'll all be looking for jobs from her.
Yeah.
Okay, don't display nervous behaviors. Something I was gonna mention earlier, Landon said something earlier. When you're greeted, you're gonna be, when I say greeted, I'm talking about the start of the interview. That video camera's just taking a beating tonight. Getting jiggled. Gang, you're gonna be amped up. Were you nervous the other day, Landon? You probably don't get nervous. Were you nervous when you interviewed the other day?
Yeah.
Okay, gang, if Landon gets nervous, you guys are gonna be super nervous. Interviewing is super nerve-wracking. So here's some techniques. Remember how I said stand up, look them in the eye, greet them, standard politeness? As you're walking back to the interview room, it just helps if you can start talking. Because, right, you drove there, you were worried about getting there on time, now you sat in you're all amped up. So as you're walking back, just ask simple questions like, how's your day going? How's business? How goes the war? Whatever you say, just get talking a little bit. And some of those nerves and butterflies just start calming down. Okay, so we're on number 10 in the middle. Don't display nervous behaviors. Don't talk to fill the dead space because you're nervous. Sometimes we get chatty when we're nervous. Shutty, right? Answer the question and stop talking. Don't show low self-confidence. Don't play into stereotypes. There are emotional words. I gave the example last month. I am an NRA member. I've been a shooting sports leader in 4-H. So if I'm interviewing for Tractor Supply, or what's some of the other things, Cabela's, those are probably looked favorably upon. If I'm interviewing for JP Morgan Chase, very liberal, New York City, Manhattan, probably 180 degrees opposite. So think about the things that you're sharing. Don't play into the stereotypes. If you're interviewing with Chick-fil-A, homeschooling is good. If you're interviewing somewhere else, homeschool, the opposite of Chick-fil-A, whatever that company may look like.
Raising Cane's.
The school district. You're interviewing for the school district. What are they gonna say? Whether they verbalize it or not. What is the thoughts?
Yikes.
About homeschooling, what the,
Our dad homeschools and he got a job at the school district.
Homeschooled at the end.
Really?